This will be part 2 of my Outlander Season 7, Episode 9 review. As always, if you are looking to avoid spoilers from the book or the show, please do keep on scrolling. So, we cut to Jamie going back to Belrigan and seeing Leary for the first time. This scene is pretty close to what happens in the books with a slight variation, which I will put up on the screen here for you to pause and read if you so care to. But the biggest takeaway from the scene is that Jamie thinks very naively that he can go back to see Leary, apologize, be the bigger person, be the bigger man, and that all will be well. And he's forgotten just how intense Leary can be. This woman can hold a grudge, let's just say that. And I thought Nell Hudson did a wonderful job with this scene. Leary is, I think, a kind of a misunderstood character in the earlier books, earlier seasons of the show. She's very young when we meet her, and she makes a lot of naive choices, and she's a very troubled person. And I think in the back half of the story in the later books, we get a little bit more insight into why she is the way she is, and she's a very complex character. Now, I'm not saying I like her. I think she's incredibly stubborn, but in the later part of the books, you get a little more insight into how she turned out this way, and you can understand it, and you feel for her in a very deep way. I think the way that Nell handles this scene is actually spot on and perfect when you compare it to how angry you can tell she is in the books, almost to the point of being irrational, but in her mind, it's very, very justified. She was young. She had a crush on Jamie. Jamie showed her attention, affection. He kissed her back and took a beating for her. And so she read into that as a sign of mutual love and affection. Then to find out that he was forced into a marriage with Claire, she assumed that he did not want that, and all signs pointed to him being interested in her, and then that opportunity got taken away when the marriage to Claire happened. Then when they do get married, he never, ever loves her in the way that she had hoped. And so this dream that she built around Jamie just was never as real or even felt remotely close to what I think she envisioned it would feel. And she felt used by him. Now in the books, the difference being here is that they go for a walk through the garden. She invites him inside. There's just a little bit more rapport between them before the conversation takes place. I think isolating it to this one scene in the stable area in front of the house is probably an easier way for us to watch and listen to the conversation. So I think that was a good creative choice. And it was actually a really great moment for Leary to put Jamie in his place and force him to own up to his wrongdoings between them. I think, like I said, he thought he'd go in there and it would just be an easy conversation, and she lit him up. So much so that when he returns home to Claire, he's really kind of knocked off his axis, and I think it was a necessary thing for him to hear, because his actions did have consequences for her, and she's a very broken person, and he realizes he added to that in a way, whether he meant to or not, and he feels remorseful for it. One thing I did want to call out, in the books, when Jamie says this line of, I feel like maybe you did when you came back through the stones, like your world is still there, but it's not the world you had. In the books, he says that to her while she's sleeping. It's not a conversation. I like the change in the show that they had them be a conversation between them. And in this scene, they also discuss how Claire also feels obligated to tell Jamie's family about her being a time traveler, because Michael has made so many comments about his life in France and his time in France and how lovely he is feeling about being in France, and she cannot let him go back there without knowing what's to come in France. So they decide that they will tell the family. Now we get a fun callback to season 3 with young Ian referring to his Aunt Claire as a fairy, not of this earth. And the whole table is looking at her suspiciously like, what do you mean? We've always had this lore about you. What do you mean? Something's actually up with Claire. So they tell the family what Claire knows, what Claire is, and of course they're met with a lot of skepticism, confusion as to how she could possibly know what's going to come to pass. But I think Jenny, of all of them, is the one that's the most likely to believe it, given that she's left and come back before. She told them about planting potatoes. She's had all these moments where Jenny can feel like, okay, there is something about what she's saying that has truth to it and has weight to it. And she, we will find out later, thinks that means that she can solve any problem. And unfortunately for Claire, she cannot. While they are sitting at the table, the door knocks, and I actually loved this creative choice to have Roger arriving at Lallybroch at the same time that Jamie gets up from the table to answer the door. The storyline here differs from the book in a few ways, so I'll try and point those out as clearly as I can. So when Jamie opens the door at Lallybroch, we cut to Roger standing in the doorway. So immediately you're like, oh yes, hopefully Roger arrived at the same time that Claire and Jamie are there. How easy and wonderful would that be? But no, that is not what happens. Roger opens the door to Jamie's father, Brian, who is reprised by the same actor, and he immediately knows that he is in the wrong time and is trying to place his way into the timeline of history to figure out exactly where him and Buck have landed back in time. When Jamie opens the door, he's met with Joni, which is Marcelly's younger sister. We saw her in season 3. She's now grown up, and she had seen, in the books, she had seen Jamie and Claire walking, and she actually confronts them in the woods and has this conversation with Claire present, but in the show, they decided not to do that. The two of them go on a walk together. This is different from the books in that originally Claire is part of this conversation and present for it. They decided not to do that in the show. They made it just between the two of them. I loved this shot with their matching red hair. And I can do a separate video about Joni's character. She actually has a whole novella written about her story. But the long and short of it is that she needs to talk to Jamie about her dowry, which he is in charge of since he was married to Leary. Roger gets invited inside by Brian and meets young Jenny for the first time. And he, again, is trying to use as many context clues as possible to figure out what time he's in. And he determines that when he's back in time, Jamie would be 18 and in France, which is so crazy to think about. He asks for their help to find his son, Jemmy. He also mentions looking for Buck later in the episode, because Buck had said to him that he would go to the city, to the town in Inverness, and then if he couldn't find Jemmy, he would come back to Lallybroch and reunite with him. So it's just an interesting scene because obviously Roger, a historian, knows so much about Jamie's ancestral line and all these people, and now he's confronted by his family in such an incredible way. The next day, Roger and Brian are going out looking for Jemmy, and they're approached by a Mr. Murray, who is actually Ian Murray's father, and he tells them of a ferryman that they spotted, and we immediately know that this is Buck, so they go to find him. Back with Jamie and Claire, Jenny is having a very hard time following a discussion that she had with Claire, where she feels like Claire denied her with help to cure her husband, Ian, and Claire says that she cannot, and Jenny is heartbroken and angry and upset. She has a very nice conversation with Jamie about this that doesn't happen this way in the books. It's much shorter in the books. Jenny's a lot more confrontational and concise in the books. They dragged this out and made it, I think, really beautiful, talking about all of the things that Jenny has done to uphold their family and keep it intact while Jamie's been away, and all the places that she's really stood up and performed in a big way for their family. And I thought this was a really beautiful scene. She does mention that she would love to hide away in Jamie's cave. This is something I'm curious if they will include it later in the show. In the books, Jamie and Claire go to the cave, and that's actually where they are found by Joni when she confronts him about her dowry, and they were walking through the cave together, and Jamie was showing Claire where he spent so much time hiding, and I thought that was a really powerful scene in the books. I'll be very curious if they include it in the show. We will have to wait and see what they include in the next episode. We then cut to this scene where Jamie and Claire are confronting Leary about changing the laws around their dowry and their agreement together after their conversation with Joni. I will have to do that in a part 3, so be sure to go check out that video for the back half of this episode.